Hey guys, in this video we're going to create these two UI designs in Figma. So by the end of the video you're going to learn how to create these from scratch. You're also going to learn tips and tricks about my workflows and some of the premium assets which we used in this design. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's create this iOS UI. And the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to select a frame and we're going to select the iPhone 11 Pro Max. We're going to rename it by using Command R to 1, or you can alternatively double click on the frame itself. And then we're going to start adding some text. So the very first line of text is going to be balance. And let's make this one a little bit bigger, and the font which we're going to use in this case is going to be Montserrat, which is a free Google web font, so you can easily download it for free from the Google website. And let's go ahead and let's duplicate this and let's add a value. So let's say 451. And we're going to make the value bigger in order to really give enough emphasis on the actual value itself. And we're going to make this other balance text a little bit lighter, since we essentially want to give less visual emphasis. And as you can see, I'm going with a tint of gray, but it's leaning towards the blue just to give it a little bit of a different color impression. So let's go ahead here and let's also create a profile picture, which is going to be located right over here. Let's bring a little bit everything towards the top. And the next thing that we're gonna do is we're going to go under plugins, and we're going to select Unsplash, which is a free plugin which is going to enable you to add photos directly from the Unsplash library, which in my opinion is one of the best royalty-free libraries out there. And I'm interested in finding a photo which is going to be leaning towards the white. So something around these lines, but ideally I want a front-facing individual. So actually let's go back to the very top. Let's select this one. This one is going to be okay. I'm just looking if there is like any other picture which is a little bit lighter. Yeah, actually also, so this one will do. But I liked how the color was set in this other one. Maybe, or actually let's just go with the first one, because I'm already thinking about the cards which we're going to add in just a second, and basically those are going to interfere with the global colors, or at least we need to figure out a color harmony which is going to work well together. So that's that. And let's go ahead here and let's create the oval. Here we're going to put a card, which is going to be one of these, which I grabbed from UI8. I have the unlimited pass, which is in my opinion the best bargain one. I'm going to link the link in the description of all of these. But these are some amazing cards from Asilab, and really cool. So as you can see, there's like tons of cards in the Figma file, but this is also available for other formats such as Photoshop, I believe. And yes, just amazing cards. So we're going to go ahead and grab some of these, or actually let's grab this one and let's bring it back. Oops, I forgot to select obviously the rest. So let me select all of it and paste it here. What have I just done? I selected also the background. All right, cool. So let's go ahead here. Let's make this card smaller, of course. And here we go. Great card. and let's make it fit. All right, so far so good. One thing that I'm noticing though is that the card has quite a big drop shadow, which I don't necessarily want to have. So I need to figure out where the drop shadow is in this design, so that I can, here we go, was the very last part of the layer. So let's make it maybe 20. Let's bring it here. And let's bring this one up. All right, so far so good. Actually, let's make the drop shadow even less visible. All right, so far so good. So the very next thing that we're gonna do is we're going to add some sort of a arrow here. We're going to make this one smaller, and we're going to leverage nucleo icons in order to add this arrow. Let's go ahead over here. Let's type in arrow, and let's bring it directly here. And there you go. All right, let's add a drop shadow. And yeah, so far so good. All right, so this is looking pretty good now, and then we're going to add a radio in between the circle here. So it's just going to be actually the opposite. This one is going to be here, this one here. Actually, I think we got it right. Got it right. We just need to move this thing, and we probably need to just create a layer mask at this point. Let's make it smaller. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. Just gonna create one of these guys. Apply it to radio. Yeah, that's working perfectly. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to create a rectangle right beneath, and try and center it in its axis. And I'm going to mask it, but I'm going to essentially twist it the other way around, so we can have this nice effect. Let's bring it back, and let's also make it so that it's covering the entire area. Cool, so far so good. Now I want this radio to actually have another color, or leaning towards the blue, which we had before. And let's try and change also this one here. And for some reason it's not really changing much. The reason being is that we need to change also this guy right here. All right, cool. So let's not make it too pronounced, but yep, that will do. All right, so far it's looking pretty interesting. And now we're going to add the transaction items, which is going to be directly here. Transactions. And let's make this transaction smaller. And what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this, or actually make it just a little bit smaller. And then we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to try and select this. Let's bring it up. We're going to say something around the lines of here you are going to see all your transactions, and that will do. Let's make it even one step smaller and maybe just a touch lighter. All right, so far so good. So let's add a filter option, and we're going to add this one here. All right, cool stuff. Let's unframe it, and let's use the same color as this one here. And by the way, I'm just checking the font size. Okay, that's working perfectly. And here we go when it comes to the filtering options. And now what we're gonna do is we're going to actually go ahead and create some elements. So going to add Barclays Bank, and we're essentially going to create the cards at this point. So let's change this one to a green. Yep, that will do. Make it semi-bold, or even just medium. And this one's going to be black, and let's just make it a little bit bigger and also medium. All right, so far so good. We have to figure out how we want it to actually have these elements, and probably need an arrow here as well. And what we're gonna do essentially is we're going to go ahead and add a rectangle, which is going to go all the way around this element. And we're going to make it just a bit rounded in order to kind of get the theme of the card. And let's use the same drop shadow as we used before. Let's bring back the roundedness of this item. All right, so far so good. Just not really feeling the drop shadow. Want to make it a little bit lighter and more towards this bluish tint, and that will do. All right, so far so good. Now what I want to add is an actual icon of the bank, just to make it more, just to make it feel more real overall. All right, so let's go ahead here on Google, Barclays logo, and we just need the icon. So yeah, this will do. It's not really in great resolution, but since we're not going to add it since it's going to be small, this is going to work fine. Otherwise, you ideally always want to work with the highest resolution which you can, but you know, it's not always feasible. So I'm going to remove also the rectangle right here, and yeah, that I think will do. So next thing is we're going to group all of this. We're going to duplicate it. We're going to add a second bank, which is going to be MBC. How is it called? Can't remember it. SBC. Yep. So we just need that icon over there. Here we go. Let's wait and let's add it over here. Cool. As you can see, we need to resize it. SBC. And this one's going to be 7th. And let's make a loss on this one, meaning that you actually got money from the transaction. And yeah, that I think will do. Okay, one thing that I'm noticing here is that this logo has a light white background. So a way to cheat this fast is just to add the highlights, and that's essentially going to remove the background highlights over here. All right, so far so good. Let's bring these guys a bit more on the lower section, and one thing that we're gonna do now is we're going to add some menu items below. So let's add a home icon, and we're going to use some let's use not some outlines but some filled in icons. Next one is going to be search. And let's figure out something that is going to be, oh well, actually let's go ahead and let's select some icons here from these selections which the app is giving us. So I think we're already finding some interesting icons which can easily be related to this type of app. All right, so far so good. Now what we want to do is to make all of these icons look well together, and just going to make them all bigger. And now the easiest way to essentially check that you know, the sizes and all that is okay is to put them side by side and simply go ahead and make them look well. So let's go ahead here, let's bring this one here, and yeah, so far so good, just a touch smaller. And what we're gonna do is we're going to distance them from one another, and we're going to use the distribute options. Then I'm going to group them and align them to the center. So let's pretend we are in the home screen now. So I'm going to give it a different color, and these guys right here are going to have a color similar to this one here, so that it's clear which one is selected and which ones aren't. Let's bring it up. And yeah, so far so good. Now let's go ahead and let's create another version of this. Oops, as you can see, once it duplicated all, some elements were outside of the artboard. So easiest way is to simply select them all and then bring them back to the artboard. Now what we're gonna do is we're going to simply duplicate this. We're going to create a dark version. So the very first thing that I'm gonna do is just to make select all of this, especially the text, and I'm going to make them all white. So white, white and white. This is going to be a base for us to work on. All right, so far so good. I'm going to duplicate this color and I'm going to go with the dark theme. So something around these lines could be interesting. Now, as you can see, we have we have some work to do for sure. So let's go ahead here. Let's make these ones darker or lighter, maybe. So we have an issue with the logos. So as you can see, we should remove the background colors of the logos, but maybe we can figure out something else. So let's go ahead here. Let's make these ones white. These ones white as well. We're going to remove the drop shadow. Let's go ahead over here and I'm going to basically change also this color right here. And let's go ahead and also change the drop shadow. And maybe we can opt for something around these lines, so very subtle overall. And also this one, we can just turn it down a notch. Don't want it to be too to give it too emphasis on that. All right, so I think we're going to need to get rid of the logos since they really aren't working out in this version. And we also need a lighter version of this. Let's make these ones fade in the background a little bit more. All right, so far so good. Let's try a different tint over here, and maybe actually let's make these ones like this. Let's add a stroke. It's going to be more white, and let's make this 1.5. Let's try and work around the color over here. Maybe we can go with something lighter, maybe darker. I mean, the choice really is up to you based on what you prefer the most. I think that in this case I'm just going to go with something lighter and then change the backgrounds of these guys right here, which for some reason I'm not really feeling it. So let's go ahead here, maybe let's just change them to white. So I'm going to go over here, copy this, and let's change also the arrows. And you can split test all of this stuff, but from a high level, this is pretty much how it's going to work out. And yeah, we pretty much got the general idea on how to create these two screens in Figma.